Masechet Berachot, Chapter 1, Mishnah 1, Aleph. Me matai korin et Shema be'arbit. From when do we read Shema of the evening? Misha'a shakonim nechnasim le'echol b'trumatan. From the time the Kohanim come to eat their tirumah, which is when the stars come out, Tzete Kochavim. We're just learning a new law that now we know in the Kohanim that were tameh, they can, if they go to mikveh, they can then eat the tirumah at nighttime at Tzete Kochavim. So for our purposes, for Shema, that's what we want to know. So when the stars come out, that is when we can start saying Shema. Ad sof ha'ashmura harishona, until the end of the first watch, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Now, first watch just means, again, saying it in a strange way, but it's to teach you something else in passing, but it's the fourth hour of the night. So if we start at 6, it's 6 till 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, so to speak. It's not always like that, is the time. Refer to your halachic calendar and time chart to know exactly when each hour is. It's called Sha'ot Zimaniot. V'chachamim omrim, the rabbis say, Ad Chatzot, until midnight, which is 2 more hours, the 6th hour, end of the 6th. Rabban Gamliel Omer, Ad Sheyaleh Amud HaShachar, all the way until dawn. You have to say the Shema. Each one has their reasons. Ma'aseh, there's a story, Sheba'u Banav Bebet HaMishteh, that the sons of Rabban Gamliel came from a wedding, were at a wedding. Amrulo, they asked their father, Lo karinu Shema, we didn't read the Shema, we missed it. Amar lahem, he told them, Im lo ala amud hashachar, if the dawn did not come up yet, chayavin atem lekrot, you're still obligated to say it. So this is just proving the idea of Rabban Gamliel. They show a story that he said his opinion, just to show that that's what it is. Velozo bilvad, not only this, the Mishnah says, Ela kol ma shamru chachamim ad chatzot, anything that the chachamim said until midnight, mitzvatan ad sheyaleh amud hashachar, is really until dawn. They just had a reason for it, which we'll see at the end of the Mishnah. And some examples of this is hekter chalavim ve'evanim, the burning of the fats and the limbs, which they did in the Bet Mikdash. Mitzvatan ad sheyaleh amud hashachar was also, you had all the way until dawn. Some said you had until midnight, but it's really until dawn. V'chol hanechalim yom echad, and all that you had to eat in one day. Mitzvatan ad sheyaleh amud hashachar is also all the way until dawn, even if it said midnight. Imken, if so, lama amru chachamim ad chatzot, why did the rabbi say until midnight? Kedei le'archik et ha'adam min ha'avira, in order to distance a person from sin. So it's a safeguard. If we just let you wait till dawn, you might miss it. This way you back up a little to midnight. Now even if you missed it, you're still going to be in the halachic area. That's permissible. Now let's look at the 613 and where we find them in the Mishnah. So first we're dealing with the mitzvah of Kiryat Shema, which is the pasuk of V'dibarta bam, you shall speak of them, in Parashat Va'etchanan, Vav Zayin. And this Mishnah begins with time period of the evening of Shema, beginning and ending. And we see the ending time period had 3 opinions. So when you look at the Rambam, Hilchot Kiryat Shema, he has 4 chapters that everything's in there. And this is coming from Perek Aleph and Halacha Tet 9. That's where it talks about time period. Now the beginning time period, the Mishnah chose to compare it to the Kohanim eating tirumah. So that gave us another halacha. So that's in Hilchot Tirumot, the laws of tirumah. Now the Ein Mishpat doesn't bring this, but it's still worthwhile to know it because it's in the Mishnah. Now in the book of Tirumot of the Rambam, you have there laws about tirumah in general, giving tirumah, from what you have to give tirumah, and then eating tirumah, all these categories. So this one is about eating tirumah, and it's chapter 7, halacha aleph, which says a kohen that's tameh, impure, cannot eat, may not eat tirumah, and he can eat it after he becomes tahor from the mikveh. And again, the Gemara will go to town. Why do this? Why say this? And what do we learn from it? So we'll wait for that. Now, this is coming out of, again, one of the 613 that says, Shelo yochal kohen tameh tiruma. Kohen who's impure should not eat tiruma. As it says in Parashat Emor, Kaf Bet Dalid. Ish mizera Aharon, a person from the children of Aaron, v'hu tzarua ozav, and he has these things that make him impure, leprosy or zav, bakodashim lo yochal. He should not eat from the holy things, which they say is tiruma, is not the holy things, but from it, ad asher yitar, until he becomes tahor, or pure. So he has to go to the mikveh. And again, tzeta kochavim, when the stars come out, which is the same time as Shema, that is the time that he can already eat if he went to the mikveh. So that's being taught over here. Then the Mishnah here went to give us examples about things that are supposed to end at midnight. And so we have these two examples, which is from Hilchot Ma'aseh HaKorbanot, from the Rambam, the laws of the sacrifices. And the examples were two. One was the Hekter Chalavim, the actual bringing of the sacrifice, or offering it up. And the other was the eating of it, and all on time, the time of it. So the Rambam has the Zman Avodat HaKorbanot, time of the sacrifice, which is like the Hakrava, the bringing of it, like it said Hekter, and the offering it up. You have the Zman of that. So that's going to be Perek Dalid, Halacha Bet. Then the eating is going to be on the eating on time, Zman Achila, of the Kodashim, Perek Yod Halacha Chet. Of course, you could see it there. And all the breakdown of the Rambam, if you look it up. Now, these two don't have a special 613 to them. They're really part of the larger 613 of you shall bring the sacrifice. Like when it says, Seder Chatat, to bring the Chatat the right way, to bring the Olah the right way. That's how it's brought down. So within all the korbanot, you have to bring them at the right time, and you have to eat them at the right time. So it's not like they have their own separate 613. It's just within all the other of the sacrifice. Sometimes a law will be a detail of a larger picture of a 613. Now, when we said the Ein Mishpat did not bring the Rambam of the time the Kohanim eat the Tirumah, as many times in the Mishnah, it may not bring it in the Mishnah part because the Gemara is going to analyze it. So they do bring it down there. If you'll notice, the Ein Mishpat does have Tirumot, Perek Zayin, Halacha Bet, like we said, but it's in the Gemara. Now we'll discuss the Mishnah connections. Well, being this is the first Mishnah, we have to figure out or learn from the rabbis, the Mefarshim, why is this picked as the first Mishnah in Shas, and meaning Shema. Why is Kriyat Shema first? And why is time period the first law in Shema? So why Shema first? Because it's a rule that the 6 orders of the Mishnah correspond to the days of the week. Just like you have in the Chok L'Yisrael. On Friday it says Bechinat Yesod, and that means all of them work that way too. Now we know Sunday, which is Bereshit until Yom Echad, it says Yom Echad, the first day. And it doesn't say Yom Sheni. It says Yom Sheni. It doesn't say Yom Rishon to match the Yom Sheni and Shlishi, because we say God was seen or known to be one on that day, even though no one was there yet. But his oneness pervaded all of reality. And that's the oneness of Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that God is one. And we testify to that twice a day. So because Sunday has the Yom Echad in it, which is the Shema lesson, so Zira'im, which corresponds to Sunday, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, decided to put Kiryat Shema, which is Yom Echad, as the first Mishnah, the first teaching. Now, let's see why time period first. Now, this is really that first sugya that it says, Tana hechaka'e. Where is the Tana referring to? Meaning, we want to know Mishnayot by heart, and we need to link them. Mishnah number 2 links to number 1 because one is time period of the evening, then we move on to time period of the day, which is the next Mishnah. So we know from Mishnah 2 what the link was, because you backtrack. However, this one, there's nothing to backtrack. So how are we going to know what linked this to be number 1? That's the question of Tana Hechaka'e. Where are you coming off of? Where are you standing on? What are you referring to? It's all for the memory link system. That's why the Sugya and the Gemara is asking that. Gemara doesn't only ask halachic questions. They ask Mishnah format questions as well, because they want to see and help us. I mean, Rabbi Yudan Nasi, of course, and the Gemara rabbis want to help us know it by heart. So we need the link. So just like in Sanhedrin, when it said, Tana hatam ka'eh, it's referring to over there, meaning in Makot. In Makot, it talks about the plotting witnesses. So the Gemara asks there, where is this coming off of? Why are you starting Makot with plotting witnesses? Because it's coming off of the last chapter in Sanhedrin that talked about the plotting witnesses in the last Mishnah. So it's like the last thing mentioned in Mishnayot. Now this is the next thing as a takeoff from there. Now, it doesn't say menahane mile. Menahane mile means derivation or source. How do we know we have to say Shema? That's what it would say. It doesn't say that here in that first sugya, the first piece of the Gemara, which we didn't get to yet. Just to know, it's not about derivation. It's just about format. What is first? Now, because there's no Mishnah first to say it's referring to over there, it has to refer to the Chumash. Now you might say, so where in the Chumash? So it's the last words mentioned. Upshach bechav kumecha. When you lie down and when you get up. Now you know from those last 2 words, when you're going to start now to give a class, let's say, on the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah, you'll start from there. Meaning that's your memory link. When you read the Chumash, meaning, let's say you're giving a class, and you're reading the Chumash, and you're going to say V'dibarta bam, which is Shema, all the way until V'lechta b'derech u'b'shach bechav kumecha. That's the end of Shema. Uchtavtam al mizuzot beitecha is already mizuzalo. So the end of Kiryat Shema is from V'dibarta bam until u'b'shach becha uvkumecha. So those last 2 words is the last thing mentioned in the Kiryat Shema chapter in the Torah. So we'll go with that. The Tana is saying the last words will trigger you to remember. Now you're going to talk about the oral Torah from those 2 last words. That's where you're going to come off from. You see, this way a guy could be on the train, and if he wants to remember Mishnah number 2, he can go to Mishnah number 1 for the link. But if you want to start it, Mishnah number 1, how are you going to know? So you have to look at the Pesukim of the topic, and then that will trigger you. So it's always, usually you have the rule, the last thing mentioned is the first thing mentioned in the next thing, just like in Makot and Sanhedrin. So this already we covered the connection of Mishnah number 1. It's connected to its verse, and the last part of the verse, being that it's time period, we now move on to time period in the explanation of Torah Shebe'al Peh. And then from here, we're going to link it all the way through. Now, we didn't get to Mishnah Bet to link it yet. So now what we want to do is all the sugyot and the gemariot of this Mishnah, what's related to it. Now, here's how we are going to see that. So the first phrase of the Mishnah, which says, Me'ematai korin et Shema ba'aravin, which, by the way, in the Gemara, it says ba'aravin in the Mishnah part, which is Aramaic, really, and it says Arabit in the Mishnah. So the sugyot under that are two of them. And the first one is the place where the Mishnah is coming off of or referring to, that it begins with time. That's what we just talked about. Meaning, why are we starting with time period? Where are you coming off of? And the second sugya of that is reason Mishnah begins with evening, as opposed to day. Now you see, it's all like one question in the Gemara, but even though they lump the questions together, it's still two topics. So those are the two topics that are in the beginning of this Mishnah, coming out of that line. Me'matai korin Shema ba'aravim. Now, when it says the time period, Misha'a sheha kohanim nechnasim lechol betrumatan, from the time the kohanim come to eat their tirumah, there's two sugyot on that. The first one is the reason Mishnah answers indirectly. Why are you telling us about the kohanim? Just tell us when the stars come out. So again, that sugya will explain that. And the second one is various opinions as to the earliest and latest time period of Shema. The whole next page, which is ready on 2b, starting on 2b, it's continuing, meaning it's all those different opinions of when Shema might start and end. So all that is the various opinions. That's what's coming out from this phrase of the Mishnah. The next piece of the Mishnah is Ad Sof Hashmura Harishona Devrei Rabbi Eliezer. And now we have 8 topics under this line. The first topic is reason Rabbi Eliezer answers indirectly. Again, he talks about the watches instead of just saying what time. And this is already starting on 3a, Gimel Amud Aleph. Now in there, he talks about the 3 watches. And in the Braita, it says that Rabbi Eliezer says, Shalosh mishmarot haveh halayla, ve'al kol mishmar u'mishmar yoshev hakadosh baruch hu v'sho'eg ka'ari. God is roaring like a lion 3 times in the night. And that brings us to the next sugya, which starts Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shemuel, Amar Rav, Shalosh mishmarot haveh halayla, ve'al kol mishmar u'mishmar yoshev hakadosh baruch hu v'sho'eg ka'ari. Just like it said before, but here it adds that he said, what did he say? He said, Oy labanim shebavonotem hecharavti et beiti, and etc. That again, you'll see there. That's why that very short sugya, which is just those few lines, is brought after Rabbi Eliezer's statements. So the first sugya is reason Rabbi Eliezer answers indirectly. That leads you to the next topic, which is 3 night watches. That's all, very simple. But it's more information about it. And this leads us to the next sugya, number 3. Rabbi Yoseh meets Eliyahu Hanavi. And that's because in that meeting, Eliyahu Hanavi tells Rabbi Yoseh that God also 3 times a day, it says, Bechol yom vayom shalosh pa'amim. He says, Oy labanim shebavonotehem, the same sentence. But God is minahemet keyona, cooing like a dove this time, not roaring like a lion, which was at night. But again, because it brought the idea of 3 watches that God is crying or mourning, so it brings the next sugya that he does that also in the day. Now, in the story of Eliyahu Navi, Rabbi Yoseh was in a ruin of Yerushalayim, one of the buildings that was falling apart. And Eliyahu Navi told him, you shouldn't be in here. You shouldn't be sakana. It's dangerous. So because of that, now comes the next topic, which is 3 reasons why one should not enter a ruin. So you see how it's moving on from topic to topic. And if there's something said in one topic, so that might lead to the next topic. It's just the link to the link to the next to the next. And when the links are over, like now, we go back to the topic of night watches. It's just a couple of links that it tangented to. Sometimes it could be 3, 4, 8, And when the Gemara is done, it goes back to the topic. Like now, Sugya number 5 is opinions as to the number of night watches. See, back to night watches, 3 or 4. And this starts 3b, page 3b. So we're going back to the night watches. Sugya 6 is respectful behavior in front of the deceased. How to act in front of a dead body. Now, why would we talk about that? Because the same Man de Amar, it's called, the same author, the one who says, as it says here, Ve'amar, and he said. See, that and means he's speaking again. Ve'amar Rabbi Zrika, Amar Rabbi Ameh, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Levi, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, and he talked about something before in the last sugya, which was about the watches. So now we see something else that he said. That whole line of Amar Rabbi Zrika, not just that Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said, because he said many things. But to have this whole statement of the whole Man de Amar is unique to this. So a tangent sometimes also for a Man de Amar. And we'll see that throughout Shas. Now, topic number 7 we're up to is King David's nightly and daily routine. In topic number 5 about the watches, it brought the verse that David gets up at midnight. Chatzot laila akum leodot lach. So because of that, it jumped to this to say about King David that he wakes up at midnight and about his nightly and daily routine. Now after that was Sugya 7. Number 8 is the Chassidut or piety of King David. Because David talks about himself as that he is a Chassid, because it's in the Tehillim, Ki Chassid Ani. And in there he says, because he wakes up at midnight. Because Chatzot Laila Akum Lehodot Lach. Again, see the sugya, why he's saying all that, but that's the link to what was said before. And then we finish this line of the Mishnah, which was again Ad Sof Ha'ashmura Harishona Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, and those 8 sugyot under it. Now we get to the next piece of the Mishnah, V'chachamim Omrim Ad Chatzot, that the rabbis say until midnight. And now we have 50 topics under this one. Sometimes you have a lot, sometimes you have a few. This one is quite lengthy. But let's just go one by one and see the link. By the way, David's Chassidut was already 4a. Now we get to Chachamim say until midnight. The first topic is the rationale of the sage's opinion. Meaning, why do they say it? Why do they say until midnight? Now in there, they say that a person, he should go to shul when he comes home, and he should read a little, learn a little, Vekoreh kirat Shema u'mitpalel. He should say Shema and pray, and then he should eat. Just a way of a person's routine in the night is brought down in that topic. So because of that, the next topic, which is number 2, which is in 4b, as it says Amar Mor, or Mar. Usually when it says that, it means it's bringing a statement from what was said before. That already is a link word or phrase. And it says Koreh kirat Shema mitpalel, bringing from what was said before. So now the Gemara is analyzing the proper sequence of Shema and Amidah, which is the Shmoneh Esrei prayer. The sequence, meaning which one goes first, Shema or Amidah. That's what's discussed now here on 4b. Because it brought it before, now they're going to analyze it. Now in there it says that a person who is Somech Geula Litzfilah, someone who puts together Gal Yisrael to the upcoming Amidah of Arbit, it says he's a Ben Ha'olam Haba, a person who gets the future world. So that leads to the next sugya, number 3, that says reciting Ashrei or Tehillah LeDavid 3 times a day. That's the sugya. Now, why would it bring saying Ashrei right after all this? Because in that it says, whoever says Tehillah LeDavid 3 times a day, Muftach lo shehu ben haolam haba. He's sure to be someone that has the future world. So that line is the link from the last sugya. And the next topic is number 4, is angelic movement, how the angels move, or in how many jumps. And this is brought because of the same man de Amar. Now, it's a little tricky on this one. If you look, it says in the Ashrei one, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Abina. Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Avina. Now this one coming up about the angels, it says Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Avina. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Avina, said. Meaning he didn't say in the name of Avina, who's his father. One he said in the name of his father. This one he said, but he's just saying that his father's name is Avina. So really it's the same rabbis, son and father. So it's considered the same man de Amar, even though it's not directly the same phrase exactly. And that would prove why it says here, the next one, it says Amar Rabbi Elazar. It doesn't say Ve'amar. Because really, one was the son saying in the name of the father, and then one was the son saying himself. So you wouldn't say Ve. So it works out. However, the Rif and the Ein Yaakov and the Mesoret Hashas, taking from them, it says to really amend and make the first one to be like the second one. Make them both Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Avina. And if you're going to do that, then you might as well write Ve'amar on the second one. So that's how they do it. So there's different ways to handle this. It could be the first way, that it's father and son and it's still okay. Or you can just make them the same, the way those previous Mefarshim did it. Just to be a little technical on the topic. Now the 5th topic is obligation to recite Shema at bedtime. Kirat Shema al-Hamita. See, we're going back to saying Shema in general that we talked about, and then it's leading into Shema of the bedtime. And it also happens to be Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Now they didn't write Ve'amar because you had other things in between it. But that's going back to the topic of Shema and now to the topic of the bedtime Shema. And in that topic, it brings the pasuk Rigzu val techetau from Tehillim. And that brings us to the next sugya, which is number 6, strategy on fighting the evil inclination, which is again bringing that pasuk Rigzu val techetau, be agitated at the Yetzer Hara and don't sin. Again, look in the sugya for all the details. Here we're just kind of going through quickly the list. We're not doing the learning of it right now. And that leads us to the next one, the next topic, which is number 7. By the way, the other was 5a. Already we started. The strategy on fighting the evil inclination was 5a. Now, amount of Torah given at Sinai. How much Torah was given? Of course, all of it. And that's the same man de Amar. That's why it says, Ve'amar Rabbi Levi bar Chama Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. So the same man de Amar is the link to the next one. Then we get back to reciting Shema at the bedtime, which is number 8. Benefits of reciting Shema at bedtime. So first it said to do it. Now it says the benefits of it. And because in it talks about where it says Ubnei Reshef Yagbihu Uf from the Torah, it says Uf is Torah, which you'll see there. So that same phrase is brought in the next piece, which is the next topic, First, you had benefits of reciting Shema at bedtime. And number 9 is benefits of learning Torah. And it also brings that pasuk. Besides the fact that it uses the language of where it says, if you say Shema on the bed, meaning the bedtime, it says mazikin bedelin hemenu. The evil spirits will go away from him. Now that line is used again for Torah, because it says kol haosek baTorah, whoever delves in Torah, yisurin bedelin hemenu. Sufferings will go away from him. So that phrase linked one to the next. Now, once we talked about Yisurin, because we said Yisurin will go away from him, so now the next topic, which is number 10, talks about sufferings, but sufferings of love, which is Yisurin shel Ahava. And there's a few topics in Yisurin shel Ahava. It's not just one line. It's a few things that are said, but you'll see that whole topic in the Gemara. And then it goes to the next topic, which is number 11, 3 gifts given by God through suffering. And this is what Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai talks about. So you'll know you're done with Yisurin shel Ahava's topic with all what it has to say about it. And then we get to this one. And because it's through suffering, because there's Yisurin, so this is more about suffering and the gifts that God gives us. So that's why this comes next. Sugya 11. And now number 12 is 3 things which atone for one's sins. And in that discussion, it compares it to Yisurin shel Ahava. Topic number 13, removing sufferings of love. And this is on 5b, meaning maybe a person can remove his sufferings of love. And there's a couple of stories here that talk about rabbis being able to help other rabbis to get out of their sufferings of love. Like it says, Chavivin alecha Yisurin, are you happy with the Yisurin? And they might say yes or no. Topic number 14 is about Rav Huna and his barrels of wine. They became sour, but it's because he did something he wasn't supposed to. So this is not so much Yisurin shel Ahava. This was really Yisurin because of a sin, on his level, on Rav Huna's level. But they bring it because it's still Yisurin in general. It's just a story about a Yisurin that happened. But also, to be more precise, the way it talks about in the last sugya, that the rabbis came to visit one rabbi that had Yisurin shel Ahava, it says, al legabe. They went to visit him. Al, like they went, alu. They went to visit him. And here it says, al legabe Rav Yehuda, achud Rav Salah Hasidah v'Rabbanan. Again, the same phrase of rabbis visiting another rabbi that is suffering. So that could be another link to it. Now topic 15, 2 practices of Abba Binyamin. Now this is going back to the idea of prayer, how he prayed. All the way back from before when we said the sequence of saying Shema and praying. So really everything from that tangented from topic to topic. But now we're going back to the idea of prayer. And the rabbi mentions 2 things that he would do. Number 16 is also about Abba Binyamin, the same man de Amar. Now it doesn't say the Amar because it's not just a statement. It's coming from a Tanya, that we learned in a Braita. So when it does that, it just leaves it alone because that's how it is. Tanya, Abba Binyamin Omer. You're going to have a few of them. So this one is about waiting for someone to finish praying before leaving. That's the Sugya 16. And then 17, which is also Abba Binyamin Omer, is about seeing shedim, demons, how to see them. And this brings us to 6a, page 6a. The next sugya, 18, is prayer in the synagogue, that God answers prayers in the synagogue. And after that is sugya 19, which is scenarios when the Shekhinah is present. All different scenarios it has here. And the reason it's brought next is because the first scenario had to do with the synagogue. So that linked it to the one before. Then you have topic number 20, God's tefillin. God wears tefillin just like we do in his own way. And this is because of the same man de Amar. Amar Rabbi Avin, Bar Ravada, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, which was quoted in the last sugya. Now we get to topic 21, synagogue absence for ourselves or for a minyan. And this is 6b. Meaning the sugya here is again the same man de Amar, Amar Avin, Bar Ravada, like it said before. Now, sometimes it doesn't say ve'amar. These last two times, it didn't say ve'amar. Some might amend it. You'll notice it if it says it or not. We don't have to mention it each time here. And it's either that God asks for someone who doesn't come to shul, or he gets angry, ko'es, if he sees that the minyan is not there. So this is about synagogue absence, not going to synagogue. Then you have Sugya 22, benefits of setting a permanent place for prayer, Makom Kavua. And this is because the last Sugya talked about the shul, the Beit HaKnesset, and so this talks about prayer, which is in the shul. That's really the link of it. And this statement is said by, who's the next man de Amar, coming from this one, which is Amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Huna. And that takes us to the next one, 23, topic 23, manner of approaching and leaving the synagogue. How should you do that? Number 24 is about the reward for certain mitzvot. You'll see the list in the Gemara. And what links it is from before, talking about the shul. It talked about rahati lefirka b'shabeta, running to a lecture on Shabbat. And here one of the rewards is agra de firka. The reward of a lecture is rihata, is the amount you put in to run to it or to go to it. And then you have sugya number 25. A rasha, a wicked person, prays the other way. And this is also Rav Huna says the statement as he spoke in the last sugya about something. And it's back to the respect or kavod of the Beit HaKnesset, of the shul. Number 26 is about belittling important things, because the verse of that was the same verse used in the last sugya, which is Kerum Zulut Lebnei Adam in Tehillim. Topic 27 is importance of the daily prayers. And this was said now by Amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Huna, which is the one who started to speak about the shul, the Beit HaKnesset, a few sugyot ago. As it says now, Ve'amar Rabbi Chelbo. And also it's the topic of prayer, because the sugya right before about belittling important things, one of them was about prayer. So now you have the same man de Amar and the same topic. And then you get to topic number 28, which is gladdening a groom, meaning making a groom happy, offering him congratulations and to make him happy. The mitzvah of that, something about that. And it's also Ve'amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Huna. And the Gemara brings several things in this rabbi's name. The next sugya is also going to be in his name, Ve'amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Huna, which is going to be number 29, talks about fear of heaven. And number 30, importance of greetings. All the same man de Amar. Now it moves on to a different rabbi statement, and it's back to the theme of prayer, because a few sugyot back we talked about prayer before we tangented off on the Mande Amar. And this is a new rabbi now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yoseh. And he talks about, which is now topic number 31, God's prayer, page 7a. And then again, the same Mande Amar for 32, God's anger, something about God getting angry. And number 33 is Moshe's 3 requests of God, same Mande Amar. And 34, God's blessings are never retracted, also the Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yoseh. Now on 7b, we move on to a new Rabbi Mande Amar, which is Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Sometimes we say ben Yochai, sometimes bar Yochai. And this is Sugya number 35. Avraham and Leah were the first. Topic 36 is about appeasing angry people. And 37 is significance of Reuven and Ruth's names. Now, 36 that talked about appeasing someone's anger, this is when we talked about God's anger before, and it was Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yoseh. This is now Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So Rabbi Yochanan heard this from his 2 teachers. That's why the Gemara brings it back right here, even though it just mentioned it over there, as the Tzlach explains. Now the Gemara jumped to Reuven's name because we just spoke about Leah being the first, and part of that topic was the reason she named her 4th son, Yehuda. So going off on that, now the Gemara says, why did she name her first son, Reuven? And then since it's talking about names and how they have to do with the person's mission of life, it went to Ruth and had something to say about her. So that's the flow of all these topics. And topic 38 now is about King David and his son Avshalom, the same Mande Amar. As the next one, 39, is contending with the wicked. And topic 40, benefits of setting a permanent place for prayer. All the same Mande Amar. And 41 is about serving rabbis. 42 is about importance of praying with the minyan. And in this topic, even though it's about prayer again, which has been the topic throughout many of these sugyot, even though you had the Mande Amar aspect, but in this, within the discussion, it also talks about the Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. It's just, he doesn't head the topic, he's in the middle of it. They bring it in the middle of it, so they also use this as the same Mande Amar. And part of this sugya is still Resh Lakish, that says a person is a shachen ra, a bad neighbor, and until the end of this topic, which is about praying in the synagogue and with the minyan. And then you get to sugya 43, which is explanation of et mitzo, time of finding, 8a. And we go into that because in the last sugya, part of the discussion was where it said about finding God and finding life. Ki motzi'i matzah chayim. So then more about this word mitzo. They talk about all different things in the next sugya. And then topic 44 is about 4 cubits of halacha, law, which discusses praying in the synagogue or not. And within that, they talked about something from the Mande Amar, the Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ami Mesheme De'ula. So because of that, that same rabbi phrase says for the next sugya, 45, benefiting from one's own labor. And then 46, same man de Amar, living close to one's rabbi. Topic 47 is walking out on the Sefer Torah. And topic 48 is Shenaim Mikra ve'echad Targum. Now, the reasons for these topics are as follows. If you look at walking out on the Sefer Torah, Ozveh Hashem Yechlu, it says in the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Menachem, Amar Rabbi Ami. A whole new rabbi and a whole new topic. So either you're going to say it just moved on in topic. But really, if you look in the art scroll, on note 59, it says like this: in the version of this passage found in the Rif and in the Rosh, this statement is cited by Rav Chiya bar Ami in the name of Ula, as in the preceding statements. This would explain its placement here, says the Emet LeYaakov. So that would be what's going on. Now the next one, Shnaim Mikra, is Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Ami. So either that's the same man de Amar as the last one, if you go according to that, or if you say that the man de Amar was, Ula from the others, so why are we turning into this one now? So the answer would be because it's still, this is about not the same man de Amar, but it's the same topic. So because it talked about leaving the Torah when it's being read, so other things about reading the Torah is now mentioned, which is that you should do Shnaim Mikra ve'echad Targum. And topic 49 is 3 things Rava instructed his sons on 8b. Now why we jump to that? Because in the last sugya of Shnaim Mikra, it said that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi instructed his sons to do a few things, and one of them was to read Shnaim Mikra. So now they're going and showing another rabbi that told his sons to do a few things. It happens that both were 3. And the last sugya of this set, which is number 50, is traits of the Medes and the Persians, which is the Midiim and the Parsiim. Again, really 3 and 3. And because one of the 3 that Rava talked about was not cutting meat on your hand, and one of the 3 things that Rabbi Akiva loves about the Madiim is that they only cut meat on the table and not on their hand. And then because it said 3 things about the Madiim, it also had 3 things to say about the Parsiim, which is Rabban Gamliel saying, and that took us to the end. Now the next piece of Gemara is Rabban Gamliel Omer Ad Sheyale Amud HaShachar. That's the title. And now there are 2 sugyot under that. So the first one is, a ruling is issued in accordance with Rabban Gamliel. And the second sugya is about reciting Shema between dawn and sunrise. Now this is because Rabban Gamliel said you have until dawn, but the Gemara wants to show how sometimes you can even go after dawn, and discusses things about that. And the next phrase of the Mishnah is Ma'aseh Sheba'u Banav Mebet HaMishteh. And the Gemara says Uba'u, that's one of the differences. Sheba'u in the Mishnah and Uba'u in the Gemara. And it says Chayavin Atem Lekrot, you have to read. And this has one sugya on page 9a. This is the son's inquiry as to the rationale of the sage's ruling. They just want to know what the rationale of the rabbis are, because the Gemara says they should know what their father says. That's what the question was. See the Gemara for those details. But it's one quick sugya. And the next piece of the Mishnah, Velo zo bilvad, ela kol ma shemru chachamim at chatzot, mitzvatan ad she'amud hashachar. Meaning not only this did they say, but anything that the rabbi said until Chatzot, it's really until Amud HaShachar. Now again, there's a difference in the Mishnah and the Gemara. The Mishnah says, Velo zo bilvad, but the Gemara says, Velo zo bilvad amru. Just again, a little difference. And the sugya here, there's one sugya, which is Rabban Gamliel simply quotes the sage's view. Because again, they're saying, did he say that? But no, he's just saying what the sages said. So it's very simple. And then we get to the last Mishnaic statement, which is Hekter Chalavim, etc., Ad She'alem Utashachar, meaning all the examples that they gave about the burning of the fats and the eating. And here you have 4 sugyot under it. The first one is consumption of the Pesach offering is not included as an example. That's also till midnight. So why they didn't add that as an example? Sugya 2 is God's request of Moshe. This is linked to the sugya before, even though it talked about the Pesach offering, but in it talked about leaving Egypt in a hurry, bechipazon. So because of that, God was worried that they're just going to leave and say, leave all the money there, just let us get out. But God requested from Moshe to take the money. So this flows into the idea from before. And then the next sugya 3 is about emptying out Egypt, where it says Vayash Ilum and Vaynatzilu et Mitzrayim, which is all about that they took all the things from Egypt and emptied it out. And since we just talked about God asking for them to take everything, so now they are. That's why this sugya comes next. And then you have the 4th and final sugya is double language. Because first it talks about I am that I am, Ekyeh asher Ekyeh. And the reason we go into that is because, of course, it's because Egypt, all about Egypt, but that's very general. But more specifically, it says right here, Amar lo hakadosh baruch hu leMoshe, lech emor lahem liYisrael, that I was with you in the exile, and I'll be with you in the next exile. But the same words was in the last sugya that it talked about emptying out Egypt, or in the request of Moshe, rather. It says, Daber na beoznei ha'am, and it says, Amar le hakadosh baruch hu leMoshe, bebakasha mimcha, lech ve'emor lahem liYisrael, that they should take the money. So since that phrase was repeated, and it has to do with Egypt, so it's brought together. And more of double language is still part of the same sugya. Number 4 is, of course, Aneni Hashem Aneni with Eliyahu Navi. Since they talked about Ekyeh asher Ekyeh, so the Gemara told us about another word that was a double language and talked about that. And now we've finished Mishnah number 1. So really a summary of it all, if you can say, Mishnah quotes, there were 8 of them. And in the first Mishnah quote, you had 2 sugyot. The second Mishnah quote, which is about the Kohanim and the Tirumah, you have 2 sugyot. The third is Ad Sof HaShmura, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. That's the third Mishnaic statement, and you had 8 sugyot. The fourth Mishnaic topic is the Chachamim saying till midnight, and you have 50 topics. And then number 5, about Rabban Gamliel, you have 2 topics. Number 6, which is Maaseh Shababanav, you have 1 topic. 7, Velozo Bilvad, 1 topic or sugya. And the 8th Mishnaic statement of this Gemara section, Hekter Chalavim, etc., is 4 sugyot. And that leaves us at the end. Now there is one more difference of Mishnah versus Gemara in the text of the Mishnah, where it said at the end, they didn't bring it now, but it was part of a sugya before, when it says, Lama amru chachamim ad chatzot, kedei leharchik et ha'adam min ha'avera. Now, in the Mishnah, it says, et ha'adam. And in the Gemara, it just says Adam. L'archik Adam min ha'avera. Just to know that specific difference. And this is the end, like we said, of Mishnah 1 and many of its details.